I knew something was horribly wrong the moment I saw my daughter-in-law standing in the middle of my living room with that tight, forced smile she always wears whenever she's planning something behind my back. But even then, I didn't expect her to ruin my birthday party in the most humiliating way possible. I didn't expect her to scream at me in front of my guests, destroy the cake I had ordered for myself, and turn my entire family against me in a matter of minutes. What I did afterward shocked everyone, including myself. And now I honestly wonder, was I wrong for what I did, or was this the only way to finally stand up for myself? Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because even now I'm torn between guilt and the relief of finally snapping after years of being disrespected. But let me start from the beginning before I lose myself in the anger again, because if I don't explain how we got here, you won't understand why this pain runs so deep. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old, and I have one son, Daniel. He's my only child, the boy I raised on my own after my husband passed away when Daniel was 12. We were always close, the kind of mother and son who talked every day, who laughed at the same jokes, who had traditions for everything. I was so proud of the man he grew into. Kind, hardworking, gentle. When he introduced me to his girlfriend, Emily, I tried so hard to like her. I truly did. But from the first moment we met, she treated me like I was an inconvenience, not competition, just something messy that came with the package of dating Daniel. She was polite enough at first, but her eyes always carried this look of quiet judgment whenever she listened to me speak. Like every word I said annoyed her. And maybe it did. Emily was the kind of woman who grew up privileged, in a house where her mother told her she deserved the best of everything, and maybe she believed that marrying Daniel also meant claiming every part of his life as her territory, including me. I brushed off the small things in the beginning. The way she forgot to invite me to their housewarming party, the short responses she'd give me whenever I texted, the way she'd roll her eyes subtly whenever I tried to give her a compliment or ask how work was going. But then they got married, and everything changed. Daniel started visiting less. Calls went from daily to weekly. And whenever I asked if everything was all right, he'd give me the same rehearsed line. Emily is just adjusting, Mom. She's stressed. She needs space. As if I was smothering her just by existing. But I tried to understand. I didn't want to be the stereotypical mother-in-law who caused tension. I gave them space. I waited. I tried to be warm, patient, and supportive. But Emily never softened. In fact, she seemed to resent me more with each passing year. Still, I held out hope, especially because my birthday was one of the few days in the year when Daniel always made time for me. Every year since he was small, he'd bake me a cake. When he grew older, he started buying them, but the tradition stayed. Dinner, candles, hugs, lots of laughter. Those were the moments I lived for. This year I turned 62, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to do something a bit bigger. I invited a few close friends, my sister, and of course Daniel and Emily. It wasn't extravagant, just a cozy evening with homemade food and some decorations I put up myself. I cleaned the house thoroughly, bought a new tablecloth, polished the good dishes, and even wore a dress Daniel gave me years ago. I was excited, genuinely excited, for the first time in a while. That morning I called Daniel to confirm the time. He sounded distracted, but he said they'd be there at 7. I didn't think much of it. But when the clock hit 7:30, and they still weren't there, my heart sank in that old familiar way it does when you know you're not a priority. My guests were already eating appetizers. People kept asking if my son was coming. I smiled and told them, of course he'll be here any minute. Secretly, I was fighting panic. But finally, at 7:45 the door swung open. Daniel looked apologetic. Emily looked annoyed, like just walking through my door was a chore. She didn't even say hello. She just glanced around at the decorations and let out a quiet laugh, one she didn't bother to hide. I tried. I really did. I greeted her warmly. I thanked them for coming. I hugged my son. Dinner went as smoothly as it could, though Emily kept whispering into her phone, scrolling, sighing loudly, checking the time every few minutes. I ignored it. I focused on my guests. I tried to enjoy myself. Then came the moment I had been waiting for all day, the cake. I had ordered a beautiful one. Something special for once, vanilla sponge with raspberry filling, decorated with delicate buttercream flowers. When I brought it out, everyone clapped and smiled. Except for Emily. She just stared at it like it offended her personally. I handed the knife to Daniel, but he looked at Emily. She shook her head slightly, and he immediately gave the knife back to me. I didn't know what that meant. Then, just as I began cutting into the cake, Emily stood up abruptly and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Are you really going to eat that?" Daniel, she knows you're allergic to raspberries. My heart stopped. Daniel wasn't allergic. He had never been allergic. But Emily grabbed the knife out of my hand aggressively, almost cutting my finger, and said, "Unbelievable. You're so careless." I stood frozen, confused and embarrassed. My guests were staring. Daniel looked panicked, and then, as if to prove her point, she lifted the entire cake and slammed it into the trash can. Just like that. My cake. My birthday cake, my tradition. My moment, gone. The room fell silent. I felt heat rush to my face. Not just from humiliation, but from the shock that she would dare do something like that in my home. I asked her, my voice trembling, "Why would you do that?" "Daniel isn't allergic." She shot me a cold, victorious look and said, "Well, he is now. And you should have known that if you paid attention for once." I swear, I felt something inside me crack. My guests, bless them, tried to be polite, but the atmosphere had shifted completely. Some of them excused themselves early, clearly uncomfortable. My sister pulled me aside and whispered, "Are you all right?" I lied and said yes, but I wasn't. I felt like someone had carved out a piece of me and stomped on it. The moment the guests began leaving, Emily unleashed on me. She accused me of trying to poison Daniel. She accused me of disrespecting her. She accused me of ruining the evening. All lies. All twisted. All cruel. I looked at my son, waiting, hoping for him to defend me. But he just stood there looking like a frightened child. He didn't say a word. Not one single word. And that hurt more than anything Emily said. When they finally left, my house no longer felt like mine. It felt cold, hollow, humiliated. I spent the rest of the night cleaning alone, wiping frosting off the counter while tears kept falling. I don't know how long I sat in silence after that, just staring at the empty space where my cake used to be. But I do remember one thing clearly: the anger grew. And it kept growing until I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't let her cross another line. Something inside me had to change. Over the next week, things got worse. Emily told everyone her version of the story, that I intentionally served something dangerous, that I was overbearing, that I made her uncomfortable, that I blew up at her for no reason. Even some extended family members called me, asking why I would do such a thing. Daniel didn't call. He didn't explain. He didn't apologize. It was like he had chosen her side completely, abandoning me. And that loneliness, it was like mourning him all over again, the second death of the child I raised. One night, after days of avoiding sleep, I finally reached a breaking point. I knew I had to do something. But what? Confront Emily. Confront Daniel. Distance myself. I didn't know. I was torn, pacing my living room while memories of that ruined party kept replaying in my mind. Her voice, her words, the coldness, the humiliation, the smashed cake. And then I remembered something Emily had forgotten completely. But before I tell you what that was, or what I finally decided to do next, I want to ask you, what would you have done in my shoes? If someone disrespected you in your own home, ruined your birthday, lied about you, and turned your own child against you, what choice would you have made? Seriously, pause for a moment and think about it. Would you confront them, cut them off, seek revenge? Or would you swallow the pain and pretend it didn't happen? I want you to tell me in the comments, because the decision I made shocked everyone around me. And even now I still don't know if it was the right one. Because the very next day, something happened that pushed everything over the edge, something that forced me into a decision I never imagined making. And that's where the real story begins. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of heaviness in my chest that felt almost physical, like someone had placed a weight directly on my ribs. I barely slept the night before, replaying the scene over and over. The cake falling into the trash, Emily's smirk, Daniel's silence. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even bring myself to make coffee. The house felt too quiet, too empty, as if the warmth I used to associate with this place had been sucked out completely. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wandered from room to room, picking up things, putting them down, trying to distract my mind, but the anger kept bubbling back up. I knew I couldn't stay silent forever, but I also didn't want to do something impulsive. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Not a call, just a short, clipped text. "Mom, we need to talk." My stomach twisted. I stared at the screen for at least 10 minutes before replying, "Okay." "When?" He responded almost immediately, "We're coming over at 5. That word, "were"? Not, "I want to talk." No, Emily was coming too. The same woman who humiliated me in front of my closest friends was going to walk back into my home like nothing happened. I felt dread crawling through my veins, but I typed, "Okay." Anyway, I didn't want to seem scared, even though I was. The entire day crept by painfully slowly. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept checking the clock, feeling my anxiety rise with every tick. At around 4:30, I started pacing again. My heart was beating too fast. My hands were trembling. I felt like I was preparing for battle, but I didn't know how to defend myself. And that's when I remembered something. Something Emily seemed to have forgotten during all her theatrics at the birthday party. A few months earlier, Daniel had come over alone. Emily was visiting her family out of state. He told me something in confidence that day. Something private. Something he probably didn't expect would ever matter. But it mattered now. It mattered more than anything. I'm not proud of what I did next, but pain makes you look at things differently. Pain makes you remember details you would normally ignore. Pain makes you ask yourself questions you never wanted to ask. I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled down a small wooden box I kept on the top shelf. Inside it was a folder, documents Daniel left at my house for safekeeping before he moved in with Emily. Among them was a copy of something extremely important, something I had forgotten all about until that moment, something that, if push came to shove, could change everything between them. And between us. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't touch it. I didn't even open the folder. I just placed it on the table beside me and waited. When the doorbell finally rang at 5 p.m., my body jolted like I had been shocked. I took a deep breath, straightened my blouse, wiped my hands on my skirt, and opened the door. There they were. Daniel, looking exhausted and stressed, and Emily, wearing the same tight, fake smile she had the night of my birthday party. She walked in without waiting to be invited. Daniel followed quietly. I tried to greet them calmly, but Emily immediately spoke, her tone sharp and dismissive. "Let's just get this over with," she said. My son closed the door and sighed. I gestured toward the living room, and we all sat down, me on the armchair. For a moment no one spoke. The silence felt suffocating. Finally, Daniel cleared his throat and said, "Mom, Emily and I want to talk about what happened at the party." I braced myself. Emily jumped in before he could continue. "You owe us an apology," she snapped. "You put Daniel's health at risk, you embarrassed us in front of everyone, and then you acted like we were the problem." My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Emily," I said slowly, trying to remain calm, "Daniel is not allergic to raspberries. He has never been allergic." She crossed her arms and scoffed. "Well, he is now. And you should know that instead of always acting like you're the perfect mother who knows everything." I turned to my son. "Daniel," I said softly, "is this true? Do you really have a raspberry allergy?" He didn't look at me. He stared at his hands and whispered, "It's not severe. Just a mild reaction." That was a lie. A transparent, painful lie. He didn't want to contradict her. He didn't want to make her look bad. He didn't want to defend me. I felt my throat tighten, but I refused to cry. I had cried enough already. I sat back and looked at them both, and something inside me snapped. Not in a loud, explosive way, but quietly, like the final click of a lock turning inside your chest. "So," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you came here today because you think I should apologize." Emily nodded vigorously. "Yes. For everything. And you need to understand that from now on, if we come here, things have to go through me. I won't tolerate being disrespected in front of your friends or family again." I blinked. "Me disrespecting you?" She smirked. "Well, you clearly don't know how to behave around us." So yes, I could feel heat spreading through my face, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. I didn't want anger to control me. I didn't want to yell. I wanted to be clear. I wanted to be firm. But before I could respond, Emily leaned forward and said something that pushed everything past the point of no returns. "And honestly, Daniel, and I think it's better if you keep some distance for a while. You're too involved in our lives. It's overwhelming." My heart stopped. I felt like the room was spinning. I stared at my son, waiting for him to say something, anything. But he didn't. He just stared at the carpet like a scolded child. And in that moment, I realized exactly what I meant to them: an inconvenience, a burden, someone to manage, someone to silence. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't try to defend myself. Instead, I stood up, walked to the table, and picked up the folder I had taken out earlier. I held it gently, almost delicately, as if it were made of glass. Then I walked back to them and placed it on the coffee table between us. Emily looked confused. Daniel looked nervous. "What's that?" Emily asked, suspicious. I sat down again. "This," I said quietly, "is something Daniel left here months ago. Something important. Something I think you both forgot." Emily reached for it, but Daniel grabbed her wrist and said, "Wait." His face had gone pale. He knew what it was. He remembered. Emily snatched it anyway and opened it. Her expression changed almost instantly, from arrogance to confusion to shock to pure, absolute fear. Inside the folder were documents Daniel had been working on long before he met Emily. Documents about his finances, including a savings account, an inheritance from his father, and a legally established trust fund that was protected from marriage-related claims. Money Emily had absolutely no idea existed. Money she thought she controlled because she controlled Daniel. Money that Daniel had told me privately he planned to keep separate, just in case. Money that, if Emily ever tried to manipulate or pressure him, would be completely out of her reach. She stared at the papers with wide eyes, her mouth slightly open. What is this?" she whispered. Daniel rubbed his forehead, looking utterly defeated. "I didn't want you to see that," he said softly. "Not yet." Emily turned to him with a look I had never seen before, rage mixed with betrayal. "You hid money from me," she hissed. "You told me we shared everything." Daniel swallowed hard. "I didn't hide it. I just didn't bring it up. It's separate." Emily stood up abruptly, her face red. "Separate? Are you kidding me? You lied to me?" Daniel tried to calm her, but she jerked away. Meanwhile, I sat silently, watching everything unfold like someone had opened a window and let fresh air into a suffocating room. Emily paced back and forth, muttering angrily. Then she turned to me and shouted, "You did this! You're trying to break us apart? You're trying to ruin my marriage?" I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No, Emily. You ruined it yourself. I'm just tired of being blamed for everything." She stormed toward the door, grabbed her purse, and snapped, "Daniel, we're leaving." Now, but Daniel didn't follow her. He stayed sitting on the couch, rubbing his temples. "Daniel," she yelled, "let's go." He didn't move. He didn't even lift his head. Finally he whispered, "Emily, I need a minute." She gaped at him like he had slapped her. "Are you choosing her over me?" she shrieked. He shook his head. "No. I just need to think." She glared at him for a long moment, then grabbed the doorknob and slammed the door so hard the frame shook. The silence afterward was deafening. Daniel sat there, breathing heavily. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to influence him. I didn't want to push. After a long time, he finally spoke. "Mom, I'm sorry." My eyes stung, but I blinked the tears away. "Daniel," I said gently, "you don't need to apologize to me. You need to figure out what you want." He nodded, still looking crushed. "Emily, she's not who I thought she was." I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't need to. He knew. He knew everything now. We talked for hours, really talked, for the first time in years. He told me things he had been hiding, fears he never shared, pressures Emily had put on him, fights they had that he always smoothed over. He admitted he hadn't defended me because he didn't want to make things worse at home. He said he felt trapped. I listened. I didn't judge. I just let him speak because he needed it. When he finally left that night, he hugged me tightly, tighter than he had in years, and he whispered, "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I let things get this far." I held on to him like I was holding on to the little boy I once knew. When he drove away, I didn't know what he planned to do, but I knew one thing for sure: the truth was out now, and Emily couldn't hide behind lies anymore. Over the next few days, everything exploded. Emily called Daniel nonstop, screaming, crying, threatening, begging. He didn't answer. He stayed with a friend for a while. Eventually, he came over again and told me everything: how Emily accused him of betrayal, how she demanded he give her access to all his accounts, how she blamed me for ruining her life. But Daniel had finally reached his limit. He told her he needed space, and she told him she wasn't going to be with a man who kept secrets. Things escalated from there. Harsh words were exchanged, accusations, threats, and then it was over. Daniel moved out. Emily filed for a separation first, trying to gain control, but Daniel didn't fight it. He told her calmly that he wanted a divorce, and when she realized she couldn't touch his protected trust fund, her anger turned into pure bitterness. But that's not my story anymore. That part belongs to her. Months passed. Daniel slowly healed. Our relationship healed too. It wasn't instant, there were still wounds, but he began visiting again, calling again, laughing again. The man I raised, the man I knew, slowly came back, and every time he hugged me I felt something soften inside me, something that had been hardened by years of silent hurt. And yes, I did feel guilty sometimes, guilty that I used something he left in my home to force the truth out. Guilty that I played a part in exposing the cracks in his marriage. But every time I thought about that birthday cake, my cake, being thrown into the trash, the humiliation, the lies, the manipulation, I realized something important. The truth doesn't ruin a relationship. It reveals one. and Emily's relationship with my son was built on control, not love. Now, looking back at everything, I wonder if I made the right choice, if I should have said something sooner, if I should have fought harder or stayed quieter. But maybe things happened exactly the way they needed to. Maybe Daniel needed to see Emily's true colors on his own. Maybe I needed to finally stand up for myself. Maybe the truth would have surfaced sooner or later anyway. All I know is this: the day Emily ruined my birthday party was the day everything changed. The day my son saw who she really was. The day I stopped being silent. The day our family started healing again, even if it meant breaking first. And if you were on my side through all of this, if you believe I had the right to protect myself and my relationship with my son, then please like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, because trust me, I have lived enough drama for 10 lifetimes. And don't forget to share your final thoughts in the comments. Was I wrong? Was I justified? Or was this whole situation just a painful lesson we all had to learn? Thank you for listening. I'll see you all in the next story.